What's up, guys? It's Chris and Will from Beluga coming back to you with another weekly Beluga podcast where we cover everything that happened in crypto in the last week in under 5 minutes. And then we dive deeper into some of the more interesting stuff and some of the things we've got our eye on. So I guess to start off this week, both in our podcast and the newsletter and a number of articles in the last weeks has just been focused on Solana, and we finally got what kind of looks to us, we think, maybe a bit of a blow off top into a local top. So maybe you want to get into that, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think like Will said, right, we've seen so much like crazy activity in the Solana ecosystem over the last couple of months, right? Just starting with Solana coming back, ripping from 8 all the way up to, I mean, I thought we'd top it like basically 78, 80, but we just, ripped through it, broke it. And let me, I'll pull this chart up, but we just ripped through that with no problem. And then proceeded to see the kind of classic effects that happen with, with a token ripping. The entire community and ecosystem also came up, right? And so you saw a lot of the shitcoins start to come up big. And here we can reduce this down, but yeah, just really seeing Solana just do really well from a low, sorry, I have so many stupid lines on here, from a very low price all the way back up. So Solana's just been on an absolute tear. And this has been since October, right? So this isn't even that long. So we're talking 2 months of just absolutely ridiculous price action. Let's just take a quick look here. Let's just call this. So you're looking at 500% up in, call it a little bit over 2 months, right? So, there's no way you can hate on that. That's absolutely, incredible. And then you saw a lot of other tokens, the bonks of the world and those types of things, really come up. And then not only with bonk, then all the bonk derivatives and all the other shitcoins with WIF and Analos and all kinds of other stuff come off the back of that. And, it really felt a little bit, it's great. And look, I'm happy for the Solana community. I'm like, I'm not like any maxi for any chain, so I'm always open to anything. But it definitely felt like we were sort of hitting this peak, and hitting like a bit of a frenzied season. And I was getting pretty nervous about it in general. And I was probably slightly more conservative than I needed to be. I pulled out of everything maybe a week or two ago, and then selectively playing now. But it looks like, leading up to the end of the year and really even yesterday on Christmas Day, this thing really hit. And, we broke 120 there for a second. But ever since then, it's looked really bad. And it started to come down and actually performing much worse, for once, with, had a big BTC candle down, but also Solana just coming back and doing worse than that. And not only that, looking at the rest of the things out here, I mean, bonk, ever since this is Binance listing right here, right? So 2 weeks ago, Binance listing looking not too bad, and then we can just see from there, we have come down 60% in 2 weeks from the top of this chart.
I believe we called the top on that Binance listing a couple weeks ago on the pod, if I remember correctly.
We exactly did, right? So the minute you get listed on Binance, it's usually the top signal. So we saw this come out. The other one, WIF, it's been doing better. Let's take a quick look at this. I actually don't even know where it's at.
I think it's had a rough day.
Yeah, not looking great either. So
I don't know if it has a hat anymore.
This is not looking very good. So from all-time highs, you're also down, right? Which I think is same time frame, I believe. Let's see. This is what? Okay, no, this is about a week after.
Right? It's just recreating the Christmas 70%. Tree chart pattern for the holidays.
Exactly. And Analos is the other one. And this has been an incredibly rough day for these guys, But look at all-time highs, right? This is all-time high Christmas Day. So we're down 85% in 1 day. Absolutely brutal. So just like, just watch this and looking at these tokens here. They're just all down so bad for the Soul Boys, So manlets are definitely hurting a little bit, although they're probably up overall,
Oh yeah.
Not to be mad, not mad about it for them, but yeah, I don't know. Will, I'm just curious, what's your thought? What are your reactions here? How do you feel about all this?
I'm cautious to call a top because I think similar to you, the last top I called was 69, and we hit 120. It feels like we hit like absolute peak euphoria, both on the timeline and just in the shit coins we were watching. I mean, we were seeing shit coins with like 80K liquidity get sent up to tens of millions of market cap, which makes no sense. So it was definitely, to your description earlier, like frantic euphoria, which tends to be a pretty good indicator of when things are going to turn around to the downside. Who knows if it kind of rebounds from here? I hope that a lot of people in the Solana eco are, taking profits. Remember to always take profits. I don't know if it's going to keep going down. I kind of expect it's going to find a new range up around here, similar to what I expect we'll see with Bitcoin, actually. What that means for the eco, I think, honestly, after the Jupiter airdrop, which is one of the big Solana protocols, they don't have a whole lot by way of airdrops from big boys, at least, which was a huge reason that it got all the liquidity in the first place. So with that incentive kind of leaving, with prices kind of starting to turn around, I'm expecting to see it cool off pretty heavily. We've also been talking about the Alt-L1. So one of the reasons that I think and we think that Alt-L1s are going to have a pretty good day, which they actually already are starting in the case of Near and Aptos and Say. But a lot of these launched in the middle of a bear market with literally zero users, and they've raised, I don't know all the numbers, but I know Aptos raised $350 million. And they never really got anything going, which means they're in a similar spot to where Solana was when it started pumping, where not a lot of the ecosystem protocols have a token. So they can kind of all do an airdrop at once. I'm honestly kind of expecting something like that to happen. We're also seeing the meme coins on those chains tick up, which I think is a reflection of what Solana did with Bonk. They brought so many users over just by pumping a meme coin. You can see it's been very effective. So I would expect to see a lot of chains try to replicate something like this, especially when they have all this money in the treasury. I mean, they can just dump funds after it for customer acquisition's sake. I've been pre-rotating to these layer ones for a bit because it kind of seemed like the next obvious move, but we'll see exactly how big a movement we get out of this. Seems like people are already rotating heavily. Yeah, Metis is, man, this feels bad.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I really
even
should have caught
BNB's even BNB's catching a bid. I mean, oh god,
the market really feels very euphoric. I mean, everybody's made money on Solana and kind of the first initial pumps, and now it's just rotating elsewhere, as mercenary capital tends to do.
Yep, exactly. Honestly, I'm surprised it took so long, is the honest answer. I thought it would go a little bit faster through the cycle, and so the benefit is I was able to load up properly in other ecosystems and gave me a bit more time, although it did shake my faith a little bit, and I was probably a little bit lighter on allocating than I should have been, but even then, like it's still it's happening two spec, per cycle, right? Is, usually you get the Bitcoin pump and then it filters to the alts. What's that? There's a 2x2 chart somewhere that just shows you kind of cycle through the shitter. You basically cycle through the chains and the shitters one by one from sort of like highest quality to lowest quality. And usually that's a function of market cap, right? And it didn't happen quite that way this time, but similar-ish, right? We saw Solana go up, then we had AVAX, and then Cosmos, right? And then now it sort of kind of went back and forth there for a bit. And really, Solana, I mean, to be fair to them, it held the attention much longer than I thought it would. And they produced not one, but several very big shitcoins very quickly. Usually there's really one or two that lead the pack, and there were a bunch of them that really made it like a ripe ground to hunt. But like you said, I mean, all my group chats are just down bad on Solana right now. Everyone's feeling hurt and just sort of like, man, I'm overexposed. I'm way overexposed on Solana coins. And then, the benefit is for many of us who did get out, who are in other ecosystems now are starting to feel the effect. I mean, just like you said, just look at these charts, right? Aptos on the daily is looking very good. I mean, that looks great. Even ARB was like pretty solid. Like all of these tokens are not too bad. I guess ARB took a big shit this morning. Maybe never mind. But like, yeah, but like you said, Metis I mean, absolutely insane. That's a great chart. You know, Near's looking a lot better than I even realized, honestly. And you can imagine the same things happening. Their ecosystem coins are getting a bit. Their shitters, the LSD coins on there, any exchanges or whatever. The classic rotation that's happening is all happening now, and it feels very much like end of the cycle stuff. You know, like we're maybe at a local top. We had a good year. We're closed now. People are closing the books up for the end of the year, prepping to kind of reset, take some profits, and clean things up for next year. And so yeah, it's been good though. But I mean, it's just amazing to watch. You know, like you can't say it's just really. I mean, another one, just like you said, just didn't get a lot of attention because it just launched at the end of like it just didn't launch in the bull, and now it's just absolutely insane. I mean, they've just been printing insane candles here. And of course, like the always way to check this is just to check some of the shitters, right? So take the Aptos coin Mao that you were mentioning earlier, right? This is doing really well. Caught a huge bid last night, so that's all. That's great to see. Even Seon, which is a very strange coin, you know, even this is up just major over last night, you know, and like, you know, a lot of these things just feel super early still. So I'm glad. I think it's you know, it's good stuff for the rest of us. And so I think you play this, but we're probably near the end here and time to reset and figure out. But the good news is, again, we're stacked with narratives for next year. And so maybe we can transition a bit to next year. How do we think things are going to happen next year with the ETF, and kind of what are your thoughts on predictions for next year? Where are you placing your bets? How are things going to pan out? And what do you want to do?
Yeah, I guess on the ETF side, I've been saying for a while that I think it makes a lot of sense for an ETH spot one to come pretty quickly after we expect a Bitcoin approval date in January. I think they just set the SEC just sets the deadline for what, the 29th or something like that.
Something like that.
So I'm expecting to see an ETH ETF pretty quickly after. It's hugely in the favor of these ETF issuers to support ETH, as we've talked about on one of the other podcasts. You can stake it for yield, so they're effectively doubling up on a lot of the revenue streams that they would have just with a normal ETF. So you have a ton of interest from those institutions. Hopefully you have a ton of interest from the retail side, assuming the Bitcoin spot ETF gets something done. I expect to see a ton of marketing around that. We're already seeing commercials, even though it hasn't been approved, which I think speaks volumes about how much these institutions are willing to throw at spreading the word. Yeah, I'm pretty bullish. I would hesitate to say it's a sure thing, because nothing really ever is until it's actually a sure thing. But I'm pretty bullish. I'm hopeful. My biggest bags are Bitcoin and ETH by far. So I'm hoping to have a good year on that front next year. I think as far as kind of my predictions go for this coming year, I think meme coins are honestly going to be the biggest thing this year. What'll be interesting is to see where that happens. So right now we have shit coins popping off on like every random layer one network that's incredibly difficult to get funds onto, that probably doesn't have a great chance of onboarding new money this year, just because of how bad the UX and onboarding experiences. So I would keep in mind that while all these shit coins are pumping, like this isn't new money. And while I think meme coins like attract a retail audience pretty well because it's just fucking hilarious and it's so fun to make money on a shit coin, I think it's a great way to onboard people. It's just not going to happen on like, I'm not going to call out names because I have bags on some of them, but it's not going to happen on the random layer one network. It's just not how it works. I'd be interested to see. I don't hold any Coinbase stock, but I've been hugely bullish on Coinbase this year, and I think they're going to absolutely fucking crush it heading into this next year. For anybody who doesn't know, they launched a layer 2 network called Base this year, which doesn't have a token yet. But basically the idea there is to make the onboarding experience to an Ethereum layer 2 network, which just means that it's scalable, it's got decent throughput, it's pretty cheap to use. But it makes it super easy to onboard as just like a normie. You don't have to go through the steps of bridging. You can literally open your Coinbase app and have your funds on Base in 20 seconds. I think that's honestly going to be the home of a lot of these meme coins, just because it's the easiest place to funnel users to from an exchange, or from Coinbase exchange at least. I wouldn't be surprised to see Coinbase break like 100 billion this year, and I think Base is going to be a top 10, top 5 chain. I hope that they launch a token. Nobody knows for sure. They've been very kind of mysterious about it. I personally think they are, because it makes a ton of sense to do. And on the regulatory risk side, they can kind of distance themselves by calling it a governance token or something like that. So I don't think there are a whole lot of downsides. The question is when it happens. So I've been positioning funds over there, interacting with as much stuff as I can, kind of getting ready for hopefully an airdrop that comes. But I think Base and Coinbase are going to be two of the biggest winners of this year. I'm super bullish.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you. I think just looking at the coin chart in general, I mean, it looks insane. Coinbase has been on an absolute tear this year. And like you said, they've just been executing on all fronts incredibly well. I think, you can say what you want about what happened before or what they were doing. I think Base has gone incredibly well, and they've really gone from sort of like boring boomer type thing, in my opinion, to like
totally agree.
Much more on the crypto native side, and really helping drive markets, helping drive regulation, and helping like lead the space and really take their spot as one of the leaders here. And versus like we're just onboarding, which it kind of was, which is like it's easy to buy, but then there's nothing to do when it's lame and kind of sucks after. Now you can actually buy, you can interact. They've got their own shit coins, and they're really building this bridge. And there's this. You have to appreciate that at the end of the day, it's 100 million KYC wallets, and so there's a lot that you can do with that, And so at the end of the day, like I think Coin's going to be an absolute insane company. It already is, right? But they've just been firing on all cylinders, and I think it's only going to be even better for them. So very bullish Coin. I think, like you said, maybe zooming out, like ETF, and maybe next year, I feel like. I don't know yet how I feel about it, but I feel like the broad story is that we're going to get a dump after the Bitcoin ETF comes out, because a lot of people are. It's just a lot of hype going into it, right? And it's just like any type of thing. There's going to be a dump, the news type, and people will just kind of reposition from there. I don't know yet how I feel about it.
On announcement,
again, it might be
and
true.
Full retrace after it happens, just like always.
Right. So I'm with you. I think that's what happens. And then we probably chop around for a bit. There just needs to be time for people to build positions, to consolidate, to kind of figure out where to go. Plus, there's just like tax season and things that are coming up, right? And people just getting into it. But I don't know if it's at halvening, after the halvening, before. Historically, you would say it's after the halvening, when it really starts to take off. But I'm with you. I think we start to go up only very soon after. And I think it follows the same cycle that we've been doing today, but maybe just in a different timeline, maybe a different sequence, maybe a different but I think this is the test pump, and it's going to be the exact same thing. Bitcoin's going to absolutely go on a tear, right? I think Ethereum is not far behind because you have the spot ETF narrative, the spot ETF narrative right behind it. Solana probably does well too. I'm not hating on the manlets. I think that's going to continue to do its thing, and a bunch of the shitters there are going to work out. And like you said, I think all the Alt-L1s are going to do well, right? Like you said, we haven't seen Aptos and Say, and these things just haven't had their time in the sun yet. And look, at the end of the day, it's stupid as it sounds, new coin is better than old coin. People just want new things to play with and screw around with, right? And there's new money to be made, and that always attracts people over. So there's going to be ways to make this happen, and so that's where I'd be going. And I think there's not that much different than before, and it's just a new cycle, new bags, new ecosystems to run with, right? New shit coins, but it's the same type of thing. And so I think if as long as you understand the cycle, and you can kind of, like you said, and like what you've been doing, Will, which is just predicting the next rotation, right? And it's not even that hard to predict, and you can just kind of guess what a few of them, and you generally get a few of them right. It's more than enough, right? If you predict the next rotation and just get there ahead of time, right? Like it tends to work out and violently well, like when it comes out, you can rip 2-3x your money in just a couple days if you do this well, so anyway, I think that's the game next year. And I think next year is when a lot of people think that this next year is kind of our last pump, or like last real bull market, because institutional money's coming in. I don't think that's the case, but does it get muted and maybe less volatile? I mean, it's possible, but I still think we've got a long way to go, and so I think it's going to be good for a while. We've got plenty of time. And so I think if you missed out this rally, because you're slow, you still have PTSD because you're bear tired, whatever it might be, right? There's a lot of reasons. And like, as long as I think you're open to just looking at where things are today and where things are going and taking into account the narratives and the story that's coming in, there's a lot of time left and there's a lot of money made to be left. And so I wouldn't beat yourself up too badly, because I know I have friends. I don't know how your friends are. I have friends who are just like, down bad and just like feeling bad for missing out the last 2-3 months, or like barely making any money, or maybe over trading at the beginning of the year, and like then just like PTSD, didn't want to get in this time. They thought it was a scam, but maybe they listened to Capo or whatever, and like they didn't get into it too much, and so they're just like upset now. And then maybe they bought recently too, and just like buying the absolute absolute top.
It's the cycle. Like, that's the cycle. It's gotta happen every time. You FOMO in, you buy the top so that the guys who bought it before you have the exit liquidity. That's just the way it goes.
So just remember, if we're heading into the cycle, we are. Red days are for buying, right? Green days are the ones you sell on. And so don't be afraid if there's going to be a little chop in the beginning of the year. Those are the days you accumulate, because like this is only going to look much, much, much crazier next year. We had 2 months of like moderate euphoria, and people are already losing their shit. We're not even near all-time highs yet.
It feels, we've had some good pumps at the end of this year, but the sentiment feels more, I don't know if I want to say violence, but it feels like it's more volatile, I guess. Like, something goes up and everybody on the timeline is going crazy over it, like in ways that I haven't seen in like a year or two, and then something goes down 10% and everybody's like, oh fuck, it's over. Like, we haven't had emotional volatility like this in a while, probably because of the bear market that we've had. So I'm kind of curious to see, again, with the facts that we have tax season coming up, we have what seems to be liquidity rotating out of the spots it was in. But we also have ETFs. We have a ton of bullish stuff to start the year off with. Like, we have a lot of up and down catalysts that coincide with a super volatile sentiment right now. So I expect we're going to see not even just chop, like fairly aggressive up and down for a little bit, but we'll see.
Totally. But next year's the year,
Doesn't bother
hopefully
me.
We make enough money
I'm
that we no longer do this podcast,
Cheers to that.
But good, man. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and this is probably the last one of the year that we do, but thanks to the folks who've been listening and spending time with us every week. Will and I always have a blast kind of just talking about the markets, talking about what's going on in crypto. And look, at the end of the day, I think there's so much more to come that, just having some folks, and look, there's so much noise and nonsense in crypto Twitter and just crypto in general that it's very hard to find your way. And so if we can help provide any clarity, or just at least weed out some of the noise, that's enough for us to help. So if anyone can, if anyone's making money out there, God bless you, and we'll hopefully we'll help you make more next year.